Hi, this is Yupari. Welcome to this week's portrait painting demonstration. So this week we're going to cover how to get a likeness, which means not only how to make a painting that's somewhat realistic, but a painting that looks like the actual model, or at least resembles him. Well, in all actuality, a painting that looks like a person or portrait that resembles a person is actually a painting that has been drawn out well, has great color, values are on point, all of that stuff. But let's try to simplify it a little bit. Have you ever seen a friend of yours from far away? I mean really far away, and still recognize them? It may not be as complicated as you would think. So imagine you're walking down the street and then your friend is like 2 blocks away. Given your vision is okay, well, at least better than mine. You'll recognize immediately, or almost immediately, that it's your buddy. And why is that? Why do we recognize them? You recognize them based on the big picture, or based on the outside shape of their head, and pretty much the blurred or ghost image of a person. It's not too unlike what you're doing in the start of a portrait. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the big shapes blocked in, I'm getting the large angles, and I'm trying to fit in the head. And you can actually get a pretty good likeness just on the basic outside shape. Now getting a little more into focus, when you can actually see the person's face close up, the real strong points of likeness are in the eyes and the nose. And I'm only saying this because, well, not because other people have told me this, but if you look at yourself in the mirror, try to cover your mouth. You recognize yourself. Okay, look at yourself in the mirror, cover your forehead. You recognize yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and cover everything but your eyes. Okay, you might recognize yourself still, but somebody else might not. Or think about a friend of yours. So, say your friend is some dude and he grows a beard. Okay, you still recognize him. Say it's your friend again, and he's grown a beard, but now he's starting to wear hoodies. Like all the time he's wearing hoodies. So you can't see his hair, you can't see his forehead. So what's going on? You still recognize him. What's going on is, throughout our lives, we're fine-tunedly focused on someone's eyes and their nose whenever we're in conversation or whenever we're talking to them. We were taught this in grade school, or at least some of us were. I wasn't, I had to learn this the hard way. When you are talking to someone and making conversation, you want to look in between their eyes, not directly in their eyes, but somewhere in between. It only makes sense, right? You wouldn't be talking to someone and just staring at their lips. You're gonna have a conversation with someone and really look at their lips? Like, what's going on? So at this point, I'm comparing the distances from the 2 eyes to the nose. And I'm trying to make sure that these distances are as close as possible. That is, as close as possible to the true proportions of the model's face. And all this isn't to say to just completely ignore, say, the distance from the nose to the mouth, or the mouth to the chin, or the distance to the ear. Don't ignore these things. Just take note that in getting a likeness in a portrait, you're really having a conversation with the viewer or the person that's going to be looking at your painting. You need to take into account that the viewer is going to walk by your portrait and do the first possible thing they would do whenever they would walk by an actual person, which is look at their eyes and their nose, or look in between their eyes. That's just what we do as human beings. At least some of us do. Somebody might walk right up to your painting and look at their chin like complete weirdos. Like, look at that chin. Alright, let's not get carried away. Let's talk about the color now. So I'm mixing up a little bit of orange, yellow, and some greens into a generic value scale of flesh tones. And I'm going to be using these to compare my actual colors that I'm going to be mixing and compare the values. It just helps to see these puddles of color on the palette before I put them on the canvas. Back to the subject of likeness. Color does play a role. I mean, it's important to some extent, but you can paint your buddy in black and white and you will still recognize your friend, in the same way a pencil drawing or a charcoal drawing will still resemble the model. It's important, but it's not the most important thing in getting a likeness. I mean, your buddy could have went and sat in the sun for a while and got sunburnt to a crisp and you'd still recognize them. I mean, they'd be a little scary to look at, but you'd still recognize them. So sometimes when you paint, you get a glare. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get rid of this glare with this house painting brush. Just lightly going across to get rid of the glare. See this brush? It's a nice brush. So now that I'm getting into color on the skin tones, I'm going to be working my way up from the darks. And this is because I'm using a white background or an untoned canvas. So it only helps me to build up the values from the darker to the lighter values. I don't always work this way, but when I do, I work on from the darks. Alright, just kidding. So sometimes I'll just go directly in the color and then sculpt the forms as it were like a block of clay. But sometimes it's more relaxing to have your drawing worked out and just burnt umber. That way when you put your values on, it's really just a matter of fitting the pieces into the scaffolding that you've already laid out. I'd also like to note that it's incredibly much more difficult to paint someone that you know or somebody that you're close friends with. I know this model fairly well. I don't see her every day, but if I did, it would be a little bit more complicated for me. This is because the more we get to know someone, the more we develop either a liking or a disliking to them. And much in the same way, we developed some preconceived notions of them. And I mean, if you're friends with someone and you really like them, like they're your buddies, you try to paint them, you want to make them look nice, right? You don't want to insult them. So that's it's a psychological process that it kind of gets in the way. So whenever you're painting someone, try to abstract it. This is a painting. This is a depiction of a person. This is not a photograph. This is not 100% going to be exactly this person. So to get back into the painting, what I'm doing is I'm putting in a background color and I'm comparing it side by side to the value of the hair and to the chroma or the intensity of the color on the flesh. You can't really see it with this camera, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to compare the intensity of the background color to the skin. So I want the flesh color to be warm, but I don't want it to be like too warm like a Martian. I want it to be cool, but I don't want it to be too cold because then they look kind of dead. So I'm throwing a cooler color in the background in order to achieve this effect. A cooler color against a warmer color makes the warmer color a little bit warmer. So this measurement I'm making is the distance of the head that I'm measuring it down. So the distance to the chest line of anyone is usually one head length. That is, if you get one head length from head to the chin and measure that down, it'll usually give you the direction of the chest, but that's not always true. If a model is laying down or is in perspective or whatever, that will affect that distance. Alright, I'm going to speed up this portion of the video because what I'm doing is I'm just laying in colors for the rest of the portrait. I get it, I kind of should have left it as a study, but I just felt like painting the rest of the values in. I mean, why not? It's a bigger canvas. I did end up regretting this decision later though. It is kind of fun to lay a bunch of paint down all at once. There's just something that's really fun about it. I don't know, just the act of painting. It's fun, right? So back to the topic of getting a likeness. I don't want to say start a portrait with the eyes and the nose. I know a lot of people do that these days, and that's fine. You know, there's many roads to Rome, but I really like having the whole head down, like everything, all my tools in check. So if I get something wrong, I can compare it to something that's right, and so on and so forth. And always remember to keep your paintings somewhat workable, loose, organic, whatever words you want to say. Because if you don't get a likeness right away, or you look at your painting and something's wrong, it's often a few brush marks to make those corrections. I'd like to thank you for getting this far in my video, and if you've been watching my previous videos, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more portrait painting demonstrations.